Covering the water is the key to a great day of fishing, and some guides feel that if you can spread your customers out, you'll simply catch more fish. Both of these techniques is what we do while waiting. So get ready, because our guides have the 411 on this week's Texas Insider Fishing Report, which starts now.
Welcome to the Texas Insider Fishing Report. Presented by Yamaha.
Well, Rick, we're back with our first theme show of the season, talking about wading, which is such a great way for anglers to immerse themselves in nature while catching species like trout, redfish, and flounder, right?
You're absolutely right, Brie. And you know, the cool part about it is that when you spread out, the one key things that most of the guides will teach you is you make your first cast at 10 o'clock, then you reel in, make your next cast at 12, and then you make your next cast at 2. And then you move down the flat a little bit more. You don't want to ever be ahead of the guy that's standing beside you. You want to move down the flat together.
That's a good tip.
It certainly is.
And we're going to learn more from Dave over at the workbench. Dave, you ready to go wading?
Yep, I am. Unless you're Rick, who'll always be the guy out in the front. He'll keep inching out in front of everybody.
He's got that competitive spirit.
You know, I can feel it. I'm the same way. So we're talking about wading, and got a lot of stuff here to talk about. So we're gonna get right into it.
We do. All right, The first captain and I trucked through some muck our first time wade fishing together, and it was such a blast. So let's get Captain Chad Kinney from the Lower Coast region on the line. Take us fishing, Chad.
I'll tell you what, I love the topics we got, but wade fishing's got to be one of the tops, because down here in the Lower Coast, people come from all over the place just to come down here and see our clear grass flats, untouched King Ranch shoreline. We got our beachfront that's untouched, and we got a lot of great clarity down here and a lot of fish to go with it. So that's a great thing to do. So on the wading here, it helps, also to have some really top of the line equipment. Shallow sport boats have been building boats down here. I've had one since 1984. These things run shallow. They get you up there. If you get them rigged with 2 power poles and a Rodan trolling motor, I mean, you can't ask for anything else on that. Throw a Yamaha on the back and you'll be guaranteed you can get there and back and never have any problems pretty much. So you can get really shallow at these boats. And what we've been doing actually earlier too, since I've been using that Rodan here the last few years, instead of running up on your spot up on the King Ranch shoreline, and you might be trying to fish a point or some grass beds, you can actually shut down before it, use your Rodan trolling motor to even get more stealthy, sneak up in position, then use your power poles down and spread out your wading guys. Rick mentioned about spread out the wading guys. This is really key. We try to get spaced out to where basically you can just barely cast to each other, like big seine net moving through almost in a sense, and you do throw at 10 o'clock and then 12 o'clock and 2 o'clock. You can cover so much water this way. Once you get into the fish, stay on them, go like that, and if not, just start slowly moving forward. It's the best way to cover the ground like that. And then throw mirror lures early in the morning. Top Dog Juniors have been working really good early in the morning up there in that King Ranch shoreline. And then move over to some soft plastics if you start getting on a little bit of deeper water, because lots of times we're wading knee deep out to maybe waist deep. And that saltwater assassin works really good. You start getting a little bit deeper. That sea shad, magic grass is the color. It's always kind of my go-to. That purple and chartreuse works really, really good. Works great there. Got a picture here of a tournament that was just held out of Port Mansfield. I got a picture of my buddy Randy owns Blues Chill and Grill, and my wife Erica. They waited all day long, or she did. She carried the team. She caught the Grand Slam there, and she had the winning redfish for the tournament.
Of course she did.
Of course.
Of course she did. Yeah, she makes everybody look good. So moving over to the inshore, talking about the trout fishing, it's really been really good out of Port Mansfield here. And the redfish are starting to move up into the flats, and we're at the jetties there. So the trout bite, I've seen some really good reports and seen some really good fish, a lot of action. We got a lot of bait in the water. It's been great down here. And wading, which we just talked about, is really a big key. You can get into there and get a lot better action going. If you head north out of Port Mansfield here, if you get the wind conditions, get a little of that green trout water going, the King Ranch shoreline is definitely the way to go. Get your line out there with the guys out wade, which we just talked about. Morning bite's been really epic. You can throw that Top Dog Junior mirror lure early, soft plastics like we talked about, that seawater, that saltwater assassin, sea shad, and then work those banks. Don't be afraid to toss that top water up to the bank, or even the soft plastic. Work it off there. Hit the grass beds, sand pockets. Those points that pop up, I like the elk mounts, are really good. There's been some really good numbers of trout, but they're also starting to see some really good average size and some really oversized big ones getting released, which is getting people pretty excited down here. Keep your weight also to a slow. Make sure don't run through those fish, guys. It's not a race. Work them through there. Remember, we got 17 to 23-inch slot size. It's going to be reevaluated here this August, and it might go back where it was. But right now, 17 to 23, 3 per person. We've got a picture here of a really good trout there that was released up in that King Ranch shoreline.
Nice.
Moving to redfish. There's some good waters in the flats and also in the jetties. Really helps if you have a shallow sport boat. Shallower sport, you can go through there, glide over it. Don't be running 40, 50 mile an hour. Just slow down to about 18 or 20. These things will stay on plane, really good for you. That way you can do some S-turns, look for redfish, look for bait, look for movement, mud boils, look for the V's in the water. Once you see good enough numbers, then just go ahead and shut down, power pull down, and then start your weight out again. If you're fishing the jetties, then definitely utilize that Rodan trolling motor. Get to your spot, hit your anchor lock on there, and you'll get in position. Work those washouts and the eddies, work some of those deeper holes. If you're doing the jetties, take some cut mullet with you, some live croaker, but also take a heavier jig ounce, maybe 3/4 to 1 ounce jig head, and with some fish bites on it will also work really good if you're doing some vertical jigging. There's been plenty of slot fish, and there's some oversized reds also in the mix, and I expect this to even pick up even better. So moving offshore, the seas have been kind of really high with our spring winds, but when you can get out, the state water snapper fishing has been good. The state water fishing has been good out there. I'm looking to get better here with the seas getting improved and the watercolor will get better, but those fish have been holding in that 40 to 90 foot of water. Get an eagle claw trocar jig. Those things work great, especially in that shallower water. Downsize the best you can. Use a 1 to 3 ounce size there. Tip it with fish bites. Do some vertically jigging. Some of those bigger fish are going to be suspended in the middle of the water column, so work it through there, kind of find out where they're at. If the currents are getting higher, if you get out there just a day after it's been rough, but it's nice seas and the currents are high, then you can do a double drop bottom rig, work out good. And there's also been a few kingfish starting to pop up, so I'll get you next week and reports on that.
All right, thank you so much, Chad. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the shallow sport boats, hot spots from the lower coast region. He says inshore fishing has been excellent on the lower coast. You want to head to Port Mansfield for a great trout and redfish bite along the King Ranch shoreline, and then offshore state water snapper fishing is good with a few kingfish starting to show up as well, Brie.
All right, well, coming up May 11th is the 23rd annual Shallow Sport Owners Tournament, which we've talked about every week on South Padre Island, where there will be over $250,000 in prizes, scavenger hunts, and a boat raffle. So make sure you head to shallowsporttournament.com for more information. We always say it, Rick and I fished it last year, and it was a blast to fish.
It really was.
It
one of the
really
most
was.
Funnest events
And
I've
if Erica's
been to.
fishing it,
Funnest.
If Erica's fishing it, she's probably going to win.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
All right, the lower fresh region is catching big time. So let's see how we can target those bass without a boat from Matt Reed. Go for it, Matt.
All right, guys. So let's just start talking off about wading. Yeah, it's the best time of year to wade on most of your lakes and rivers. Any type of water. There's a ton of fish shallow right now. They're finishing up spawning, and there's a lot of post-spawn fish up there speeding up that don't leave the shallows after they get through spawning. So you have a ton of fish up there. You need to find you some backwater areas that you can access. Go ahead and get your feet wet. When you're wading, you want to keep it simple. A small spinner bait and a Texas rig Berkeley General will work great for the largemouth bass. Small crankbait or rattle bait will add white bass and other game fish into the mix. So get you some small baits and basic Texas rigs to get out there. Like I said, don't try to overcomplicate it. Don't carry too much. Find most lakes have access to state parks or anywhere you can drive to the water and get in the water and cover some ground. Don't let not having a boat keep you from enjoying the springtime action. There's lots of fun to be had out there.
All right, let's tell me about the bass fishing, Papa.
All right, Mike Bates sent me a report from Choke Canyon. The lake level has actually come up about a foot, which is really good. And any South Texas lake, it's come up a foot. The shad spawn has slowed down some. There's still some bass to be caught in that first hour on moving bait shallow with the remaining part of the shad spawn, rattle baits, vibrating jigs, jerk baits, and spinner baits. After going to move out in that 5 to 15 foot depth, Texas rig, Carolina rig, and deep diving crankbaits are catching a ton of numbers right now. He's been catching 40 to 60 fish on half day trips. His numbers are good, and his size has also improved. Happened sounds kind of crazy, but a lot of South Texas Lake, as summer gets closer, your size goes up when they group back up. Brian Cotter sent me a report from the Austin area. Lake Travis is fishing really well. The topwater bite is just starting to pick up. But the shallow crankbite and soft plastic bite is producing the most fish right now. Most of them are in that 5 to 10 foot depth. He does say there's still a very few left on bed, so keep your eye open if you happen to be up there by the shore. Some big fish are the 12 to 20 foot range, on shaky head finesse worms and jigs. As usual, some of the biggest fish are always the first ones to show up on the deep structure. Lake Bastrop's fishing well, catching a lot of fish around the grass lines and 5 to 8 feet on soft plastics. Crankbaits and wake baits are also working there. Just a few fish left in the back of the creeks along the reed lines. Lake Buchanan is fishing really well. The bite up the river has been producing some big fish, but they all really scattered out, so you have to cover a lot of water to come across one of those. It's throwing shallow cranks, Texas rigs, and jigs is getting the best bites. But don't forget to throw a frog around any shallow cover right now to catch some of those cruising post-spawn fish. There's lots of big ones still up there shallow. Greg Boyd sent me a report from Fayette County. It's fished a little better this week. Few fish still shallow around the grass, as there's always a group of fish that live up there shallow. But most of them are starting to concentrate on the mid-depths offshore in that 10 to 20 feet of water. Points and road beds are your sure bet. Get you a Carolina rig, and all plastic stick baits or creature baits, and that's how he's catching most of his fish. Another group of spawners that showed up at Somerville on the shallow areas with hard bottom swim baits and stick baits are catching those. But most of the post spawners have moved out onto the road beds and main lake points. They're biting the Carolina rigs and some crankbaits. So get out there and cover a lot of water and find you a few big ones.
You got three pictures.
Three pictures of some lovely South Texas giants. That's one of the best things about South Texas. You can always come across one of those.
At least you wore my shirt.
Not
At
Rick.
least made me happy. You wore my shirt. I appreciate that, Matt. Look at those studs. You bring it every week. All right, tell us about the crappies, Papa. Are we talking about crappies tonight? Oh, that's it. We're done. Sorry. All right, we're going to go ahead.
All right, don't confuse me.
All right, I'm confused myself. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the lower fresh hotspots. Choke Canyon Lake is fishing really well these days. The bass are active in the shallows for the first couple of hours on moving baits, and then later move to the points in 5 to 15 feet of water with Texas rig, Carolina rigs, and also cranks to load the boat with them babies.
Those big bass just get you all discombobulated.
I
and
know
you just
I can't follow my
focus.
instructions.
It's all right. We'll get there. The Middle Coast region is waiting for you coming up next. But first, Dave is at the workbench getting us ready for the waiting life for rigs and techniques. You have a lot of stuff up here, Dave.
101 tips we have to go through in the 4 minutes. 101.
You can do
Wow.
it.
I think we can make it.
You can do it.
You're going to be like the FedEx man.
We'll be back.
We're not going to make it.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. Ameritrail. Load, launch, relax. Fenwick. Feel everything. Bahio Sunglasses. Blue light blocking. Radically clear lenses. Sportsman's Adventures with Captain Rick Murphy. Fishing for adventure. Berkeley. Your fish, our science. And Skeeter Performance Fishing Boats. Eat, sleep, fish.
Well, this is certainly one of my favorite parts of the Texas Insider Fishing Report, Dave. Every week we talk about rigs and techniques, so let's talk about wading tonight.
Well, it's one of the most simple and satisfying ways to go fishing. You just either step off the boat and go wading, or you step off the shore and you're out in the water or in the environment like like no other way.
Right.
It's you're really close to everything. And Texas is amazing because there's 8 bay systems all the way from Sabine Lake down to Laguna Madre, and there's just miles and miles and miles and miles of grass flats that are perfect for wade fishing.
Yeah.
And with a ton of fish on them. You know, sometimes if you have flats with no fish, you got flats with fish here.
Right.
So, you know, it's just a great way to do it. So, you know, just like Chad was saying, sometimes because they're so far away, you got to get in a little boat and get to them. But once you get off the boat and you're out there casting, it's just the greatest way to catch them. And, you know, you're going to want to start in places where you see something happening. You know, you either want to have some good current, you want to see some bird life present around, some flicking bait would be preferable, waking fish, obviously. Mullets jumping around. Those are the places where, hey, let's go ahead and jump out or start here. And what you want to do is you want to have some nice boots, you know, depending on where you are. If there's stingrays around, you want to get some really nice boots. If you're, you know, a poor fellow like me, a pair of nice lace-up Converse tennis shoes.
Keep those over there. I know what those smell like.
These things are like Confederate jasmine is what they smell like. Oh. But anyway, if you lace them up, you know, you want to have high tops where you can lace them up real good because you don't want to leave them in the mud. That's why these have the nice zip on the side so you can get them off real easy. You also want a small backpack or something. You know, you can get one of the real nice AFCO urban backpack that actually has a water feature in it. You know, you can have water if you want, but you know, you can also stuff a couple little waterproof boxes in here.
Some plain old waterproof
when
boxes.
I was doing this back in the day, we'd wear these little fanny packs, and they weren't nearly as cool as the little AFCO backpacks. We had little fanny packs on with all of our stuff in it. But these are really nice because a lot of them even have a little place where you can hang a rod. Like if you have one of the backpacks, they have a little place where you can actually hang your rod and put your rod in there and keep it.
That's what AFCO's got here.
Yeah, exactly. You can hang your rod there and let go of fish and whatnot while you're doing that.
Cool.
So that's always good to have those. Next, you know, I like to use what kind of lures you want to use. I love to use topwater lure if I'm early in the morning or late in the evening or during the middle of the day. I like to use topwater plugs all day. I mean, if I see any kind of stuff happening on the surface, I'm going to probably throw the topwater plug all day until I stop seeing stuff happening on the surface. And then I'll switch over to some other stuff. But I really like topwater things. And I like to, if I'm getting a lot of topwater bites and I'm missing a lot of fish, especially from redfish, I like to go down in a lower profile bait, a smaller bait, because a redfish especially, his mouth is underneath of his head. He comes up with that big old bulbous head that he's got on that bait, and he'll push it out of the way trying to eat it. And keep pushing it out of the way and pushing it out of the way. And if it's a big floaty thing, it keeps getting pushed out of the way. Something that sits a little lower in the water.
The drift walker with also not as noisy, so a little more subtle a presentation.
Right.
I like your style.
Yeah,
Dave.
and they can get a really good bite and eat that up really good. Next, you got hard swim baits. Some of these baits with the little lips on them. You know, if they don't dive real deep, you know, if you're using, you know, fishing in 2 to 3 feet of water and they're not deep divers, those are perfect. You know, if you can keep them up off the grass, you know, they make that nice shimmering look. And all these fish are eating little bait fish.
Berkeley Cutter 90 in this Berkeley stick shad. And then soft plastics?
Soft plastics, anything, you know, 5 inches or 4 inches with a nice paddle tail on it, or a shrimp imitator like the Fish Bites Fight Club there, you can put in on a jig head. You know, a lot of times you gotta, depending on the depth of your water, you know, you want to try to stay away from real heavy jigs and stuff because they're going to get down in the grass. And not only that, they don't, as soon as they hit the water, they head straight to the bottom. So if you have an eighth ounce or even a 16th ounce jig, if you can throw it with a bait caster, it stays in the strike zone a little longer on its way down that first drop that goes in the water.
Now, I know the Texas fellas love chartreuse tails. How do you feel about that, Dave?
If your buddy's catching them on chartreuse tails, then I'm going to be using a chartreuse tail.
You're going to be using something with a colored tail in Texas.
I like
100%.
I like anything that, you know, has a lot of action and they can see it.
Well, then you must like Brie.
Well, she has got action.
Action. That was 100%, 101 tips.
Action.
I counted.
Did you?
No.
Awesome.
Our Middle Coast captain
Told you we wouldn't
more
make it.
than ready to dive into the world of wading this week. So, Bink, tell us how it's done.
Wade fishing is my favorite way to catch speckled trout. There's nothing better than tossing a topwater on the shoreline on any incoming tide and watching the plug get crushed by a big old trout. This week we enjoyed some great wading, tossing topwaters and bass sizes over shell reefs. We caught and released trout to 8 pounds and then had lots of 2 to 5 pounders. The best part of the wading is the solitude and being on the same playing field as the fish. It's like hunting, only with a graphite rod. I wrote a book strictly for wade fishing back 20 years ago called Wade Fish Texas. It gives the ins and outs of wading, along with a lot of really, really solid GPS coordinates from Sabine Lake to South Padre. So get out of the boat, get one-on-one with the fish. Once you find them, it's so much easier to stay quiet and stealthy and stay on them. I mean, if I can wade, I'll wade 100% of the time. Our water temps along the middle coast are running in the 70s and tides are above normal, giving us lots of real estate to fish. East Matagorda Bay continues to show off when winds allow anglers to drift over deep shell. Lots of large trout were released this week. Many anglers are tossing bass assassins and mirror lures, and the topwater bite has been good. There were just a whole lot of fish caught this past week while drifting in 5.5 foot of water. It's a testament to how our bay is returning. Waders in East Bay, they welcome the high tides. It's pushing a lot of those big trout up on the shoreline. But as the water's been getting a little warmer, they're pulling out in those 5.5, 6 foot ranges. We're still tossing bass assassins on them and doing really, really well. Port O'Connor continues to shine. Back Lake's coming alive with the high tides. Early morning topwater bite's been great, and later in the morning it's been in chest deep waters working those depths with bass assassins and mirror Little Johns. Palacios, the upper reaches of the bay, like Tres Palacios Bay and Caronquil Bay, have been good along the shorelines. Freeport anglers, they found trout on the reefs for the high tides. The next day of calm seas, expect there to be a really good bite in the surf along that Blue Water Highway all the way to the surf side. You know, water temperatures are over that magic 72-degree mark out there right now. Rockport anglers have been tossing corkies and soft tines along the sand and grass humps. Again, those big tides, those fish are staying in the Lydian Channel, then coming out and feeding in on the flats. We'll go redfish. Our swollen tides have been a jump start to our redfish action. It's been tough to find a good school to work on because there's just a lot of water. But, man, when you find them, they're there. Back lakes like Oyster Lake, Crab Lake, and Horse Trailer Lake have been mainstays around Matagorda. Don't be surprised to find a lot of black drum on those reefs as well. Shell Island's been holding a lot of redfish and black drum with the high tides. In Port O'Connor, Pringle, Conti, and Shoalwater Lakes are holding good numbers of reds. If you want the big bull reds, it's a broken record. They're at the jetties. Port O'Connor, Matagorda, Freeport, Port Aransas, they're all there. Finger mullet, shad, table shrimp, it all gets done. And then as we get into May, there'll be a lot more menhaden show up, and they will crush a menhaden. There's a photo there. Those high tides have been a boon for redfish in just about every back lake along the middle coast, and it's only going to get better. Offshore, weed lines are starting to show up in our Gulf. Large triple tail or target them. They get underneath there, use the shade, and it will be right underneath the surface. You can target them. You can sight cast to them. There's lots of Dorado with them. That's just another tribute to what that a lot of people talk about the weed lines and about the sargassum coming in, but it's a boom for anglers. It really attracts the fish. Red snappers are where they always are. They're over rocks and wrecks in 40 to 80 foot of water. We're expecting some calmer seas in the coming days, so that offshore bite's going to be good. It was a great week in the Middle Coast region. Please keep practicing catch and release. Please treat your bays, our bays, like it's your own backyard, and everything will be great.
All right, thank you so much, Bink. Great report. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the mirror lure hotspots from the Middle Coast region. Bink says inshore, the trout are good while drifting with bass assassins over the deep shell in the East Bay. And then if you want to go offshore, look, redfish action is good in the back lakes of Rockport on the mullet and small topwaters.
All right, well, our Fish Bites Upper Coast and Startron Middle Fresh regions have some fresh new reports waiting for you. So keep on casting until we return. And remember to keep up with everything fishing in Texas. Make sure to head on over to our website, like us on Facebook, of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and to see new fishing adventures with reports, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Captain Rick Murphy. We're always posting something new. See you soon.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Bass Assassin and Saltwater Assassin, the best lures, period. Berkeley, your fish, our science. Murphy's Law Sport Fishing. Book your trip today at murphyslawsportfishing.com. Tin Cup Mountain Whiskey. Shallow Sport, the Texas legend. Rodan, set it, forget it, catch more fish. And Penn, let the battle begin.
Today's Power Pole tip of the week is about using dual poles. Now guys, I love the fact that with dual poles, I can create total boat control. Now when I approach a dock, or if I approach a point or an oyster bar, everything is in the angle of my cast in most fishing conditions. So what I try to do is understand exactly the presentation that I want to make with my lure and set the boat up by so doing that. So what ends up happening is we can approach a dock, we can approach that oyster bar, and I'm going to put the boat so that I can compensate for the wind as well as the current. And dual poles allow me to do that. Most of the time, if you have a single pole, you're always going to drift down current or even downwind, or the wind might blow you across the current. So you don't have the total control that you have with duals. So keep that in mind, that with duals, you're gonna have the total boat control, and that's today's Power Pole tip of the week. You know, Brie,
Yes.
Two's better than one, unless you're talking about a wife.
The Fish Bites Upper Coast region has some wade fishing tips you're going to want to hear.
have one of those.
So let's listen up to Carl Weston.
Howdy, folks. Yeah, let's talk about wade fishing. The weather has been beautiful lately. We've had a few showers here and there, but the water temps are around 70 degrees, and that's perfect for wade fishing. The wade fishing is definitely a fan favorite here in the Upper Coast, especially in April. If you keep your composure and not tie off your fish to your waist, think about this little safety tip. Don't tie your stringer to your waist. You know, we have sharks in these areas, and it's just not a safe environment. Now, night wade fishing also is really popular here in the Upper Coast. We've had a lot of people eager to get out there and see this, you know, this week, especially with the beautiful temperature. Wading is pretty close, you know, cost-effective for anglers as well. A pair of good waders, boots, a personal flotation device. Hey, you get your Bahio sunglasses, cut off the glare, your preferred pen, rod, and reel combo, get a little pack of fish bites, and that's a recipe for some good fishing right there. Big trout have been hitting all along the grassy shorelines at night. And I would say, I don't know what you guys are waiting for now. In the daytime fishing, if you're out there, Taco Marine makes a really cool product called Shade Fin. I can't tell you how this has changed fishing for us. It changes the game even for the inshore, because you can swing that shade fin around. Even if you're in the water and stay shaded off the boat, it's priceless. Today we have a picture of Zach. Now this was on his first cast. This trout, I think I'd have put the rod in the truck and went home.
Wow.
That was my first cast, guys, right?
There's nowhere to go but down after that, brother.
Yes, sir. And so, continuing on into the redfish, you know, those guys have been on fire this week for waders as well. Along the rocks, down the shorelines, the redfish are being caught over in East and West Galveston Bay. That's the spot to be right now, I'm hearing. Again, the water temperatures are sticking around 68 to 70. And if you're fishing from a boat, the jetties have been producing as well on that incoming tide. Oyster reefs in Galveston Bay, it's heating up out there. As it gets warmer and we get more bait. A good bait to use right now is shrimp or finger mullet. You can free line or run it on a popping cork. Our second photo today is Mr. Jim, once again night fishing, hitting a big redfish. Look at that big copper pot right there.
That's beautiful. All right, let's go offshore, Pop.
All right, we're going to go talk about a little more wahoo because they're still out there. They're so much fun to catch. The size has come down a little bit, but the fish, they're going to keep those pen reels screaming this month. I'd say the size dropped off, like I said, a little bit, but it's still worth targeting. Up to 40, 50 pounds, these fish are amazing to catch. My personal favorite, smoked wahoo dip paired with a nice glass of Tin Cup whiskey. I might not leave the house, but the rock piles and the deep water reefs in 300 to 600 feet, Rick, is where you want to go right now. Fast trolling deep divers, skirted rigged with ballyhoo. An R&R tackle wahoo magnet is always good. dime bend fishing products. And R&R Tackle make great wind-on shock leaders. For this type of fishing, that's where you want to be. Grab your gear and get out there, guys. I have a picture here of Mr. Danny with a really nice wahoo.
Nice.
And we'll roll right from that into state water snapper. Back in closer. If you're in closer, it's been a little bit rough. You can still get out there and get you some nice fish. This is the time you want to get out there and partake in this. It won't be long. They're from the beach out to the state water line right now. I saw a picture the other day of a guy caught probably an 8-pound snapper on the beach. So that tells you they're in skinny. And don't wait too long, because this warm spring temps will push these fish back out deep, and you'll be waiting for the snapper, the federal season. So the same slip style snapper rig that you use all year. Cut squid, cigar minnows is our natural choice. I also love dropping a big R&R Tackle bucktail, tipping it with fish bites, crab or shrimp. This allows you to feel the fish and really get a good hook set. And for me, it's more fun, guys. It's just more fun. And we have a picture today of a red snapper in state water that could not resist the fish bite.
Oh,
So, Carl, now that Natasha hit 40, do you call her your old lady?
Oh. No.
All right, man, you better not do that. You put yourself in timeout. I'm going to go and take a look at the hot spots from the Upper Coast region. Carl says, inshore, nighttime wade fishing along the rocks and grassy shorelines in East and West Galveston Bay for both trout and redfish, and then offshore, fast trolling for wahoos using deep dived and skirted rigged with ballyhoo or the R&R wahoo magnet along those rock piles and deep water reefs in 300 to 600 feet of water.
While you're over here giving ages away, I'm still stuck on the wahoo fish dip and 10-cup whiskey.
Yeah.
Woo!
That sounds good.
Sounds so good. Our guide in the Star-Tron Middle Fresh region is ready to take us wade fishing. So let's hear what we got to do with Matt Loescher.
All right, let's do it. So on the wading theme, the Middle Fresh region offers a lot of great wading opportunities. It's not a really common thing. You don't see a lot of people doing it, but there are some guys who do it really well and are very successful. Water level is the key here. Many of our lakes have very expansive shallow flats that are really perfect for wading. The trick is determining which lake at what water level is most beneficial. So, for example, Toledo Bend, I believe it offers the most wading opportunity, or the most wading area, rather, when it's lower, because there are so many shallow areas that would normally be too deep to wade. So there's more area that becomes fishable for a wading angler at a lower water level. However, when it's high and flooded, there is less area to wade, but the wade fishermen have a huge advantage then, because in those flooded brushy areas where the boaters have a hard time accessing, the wade fishermen can get in there and just wreak havoc on those fish. So speaking of that, flooded bushes, one lake that I believe offers some excellent wading opportunities right now is O.H. Ivy. It's at a really low level. It's about 24 feet low. And so there's all around that lake, there's these salt cedar trees from 0 all the way up to about 15 feet. Of course, you can't wade quite that deep, but if you can start at the bank and go from the inside on these bushes, you can access areas that are really hard to get a boat into. Trust me, I've tried. And there's especially a lot of that on the upper end of that lake. There's literally miles of flooded salt cedar bushes that are just really tough to get a boat in, but a wade fisherman can easily access those areas. So it does take a little scouting and learning the different water levels on the different lakes, what's best for you, but there's plentiful opportunities, so get out there and enjoy it. Now jumping into the largemouth bass this week. Starting off at Toledo Bend, a lot of good fish been caught here lately. Just had a major tournament come through, had some really great catches. The majority of the fish here are post-spawn now. There's still a few pre-spawners, and you'll see most of that on the lower end of the lake. And the lake's also on a slow fall right now. So the water level's hanging around 170.6 or so, about 1.5 foot low. Water temperature is 65 to 73 degrees. The offshore bite's been improving thanks to that falling water. It pulls those fish out. The fish are stacking up on hard spots and drops from 5 all the way out to 20 feet near the mouth of the spawning cove. There's also a shad spawn starting up real heavy right now. That's mainly a morning bite, and it's mostly on the main lake. So look for the large concentrations of shad with your electronics, and look for the birds on the bank. And when you find that, spinner baits and topwater plugs are the best tools. I got a photo here for you for the Toledo Bend report of Mr. Glenn Jamonville with a healthy Toledo Bend bass there.
Nice. All right, keep going, bub. Sam Rayburn.
Yes, sir. going over to Rayburn, the bank bite remains really hot at Rayburn. The water's still over a foot high there. It's about 65 to 72 degrees. The fish are staying up in those flooded bushes and grass, so the frog bite's still great as well. And then along with the frog bite is soft plastic bite, of course, with that Bass Assassin Fat Job. It's always great around that shallow stuff. Rig it weightless, black and blue or watermelon red in the cleaner areas. Slow fall right now is key because the fish are up in the water column. Moving up to Richland Chambers, Mr. Thurman Selman with Bass's Specialty Guide Service tells me that the lake is almost full right now and the water's clean. He says the lake's in great shape at this time. The bass are in the shallows spawning, and he says that the Bass Assassin Fat Job, once again, is getting the job done. But he's rigging it wacky style up there. Weightless or with a really light weight has been good. He likes the green pumpkin color for that. He's throwing it around docks, laydowns, and any grass he can find. He says the fishing along the reeds that are along the bank lines are really good as well, near the plant area, starting around the railroad bridge. And then there's fish also hanging outside that plant area. For a bottom bite now, fishing a little further out for the staging fish, he's using that same Fat Job, but he's rigging it Texas style, but once again, the lightest weight possible, so keeping it a slower fall. Now finishing out real quick with crappie. They're up shallow on Sam Rayburn. Been hearing a lot of good about it over there. They're using those shallow brush piles and hanging around the flooded bushes and grass. You can catch them using a slip cork rig with a Panfish Assassin jig underneath it or a live minnow.
All right, bud. Thank you so much. You did a good job. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the Rodan Marine System hotspots from the Middle Fresh region. He says Sam Rayburn has a hot, shallow bite around the bushes. Toledo Bend offers some shallow and deep fishing right now for post spawners. And then Richland Chambers is in the spawn phase, Brie.
Ooh la la. The Upper Fresh region has been waiting patiently and is our last destination. It's my last one, I promise. But not before we check out all the new products Dave has for us at the workbench. Dave, what do we got?
I got all kinds of stuff.
Oh, thank goodness.
This is a really neat tackle box from H2OX. We're going to go through it. And new stuff from Academy.
Everyone loves a new tackle box.
Exactly.
We'll be back.
The Texas Insider Fishing Report is brought to you by Abu Garcia, Fish to Win, Fenwick, Feel Everything, Diamond Fishing Products, our reputation is on the line, Island Lures, Tournament Tackle, turn on the bite anytime, tie on a Miro Lure, and Startron, start, run, and store with Startron.
Well, Dave, we're here and we're going to be trolling the edge here at the workbench, and we're talking about new products like every week.
Yes.
And Taco's going to provide that for us, so what do we got?
Well, the first thing we have here, we have the Academy H2OX EVO 3600. You know, it's a really cool tackle box here. It's got an external storage on top. It's got a little bungee deal, so if you want to keep all your special things right up there on the front. It's got a really cool little quick bay right here, which, you know, allows you to just dig right in here. It's open all the time, so you can put pliers or whatnot in there. Holds 5 boxes, 4 inside and the one on the top. So, you know, you can put a lot of stuff in there.
Oh, Dave, I think I could get one more of these.
You can put 2 or 3 in there.
6, and then I could have a new Texas Insider Fishing Report bag.
Yes.
To put my lures in.
That's possible. It's got rubber-coated little pockets all over it. I think there's like 4 or 5 of those suckers. A water-resistant bottom. The whole bottom of it is you know, raised up and hard non-skid coated with a water-resistant bottom. So the water, if you set it in the boat, the water comes rushing in the bottom. It won't soak all the stuff on the bottom.
That's important.
Yep, a removable shoulder strap. It's made out of a high-density polyester, so it's, you know, fairly strong. Plus, you know, it's 18 by 12 by 12, so, you know, it doesn't take up a big spot and still holds a lot of stuff.
I like it.
Yeah.
You know, so many times if you fish in an open boat, a john boat, a kayak, and it starts raining, all your tackle gets soaked.
Yeah, and that's not always good.
No.
You know, because it's hard. You have
Where do we go to
dry
find that?
stuff off.
Academy.com?
Academy.com. Next, we got some PVC 3D crabs from Savage Gear. You know, these are ultimate made for the ultimate realism, because they make a 3D scan of an actual little crab, and that gives it an incredible lifelike appearance because it's a scan of a little crab, so it looks great.
Wow!
And you can rig that a lot of different ways. Can you put it on a jig? You can rig it weightless. You can make it a drop shot. Do all kinds of kind of really stuff. It's got little air, little claws have air in them so that they float up. If you put them on a jig head,
like this.
It'll float up. Exactly, for really good action. It's got 5 different colors, so you can do a lot of different things.
What I
with
like is it's light. You could even put it on a fly rod. You could cast it with a fly rod.
I wouldn't doubt it. It's because there's nothing to it.
I know how to do this.
I bet you do.
Yes.
Go to Savage Gear. Get one of those.
SavageGear.com.
Yeah.
Nice.
Next, we got a book.
A book.
Right? We've got a book, and this book was written by a really special fella named Larry Walker from Texas. I met Larry. I was on my way to Columbia, and met Larry in the airport. He came up behind me and gave me a little shove and says, "What's the biggest fish you ever caught?" Because I had all my fishing stuff with me. And we went, we got to be friends after that. He was on his way down there to catch some giant peacock bass in Columbia. And what Larry likes to do, his parents started a bait shop in Prairie, Texas in 1946, in Grand Prairie, Texas. And they became one of the largest skeeter dealers, I think, or in the state, and all kinds of bass fishing. And then Larry took that little bit of minnow catching with his dad early on. He's in his mid-70s now, or late 70s, and he has the energy of a 50-year-old. He's been all over the world, caught giant black marlin. Honduras, was a banana farmer. I mean, there's a million really cool stories in there about Larry Walker and his attempts to go. He only wants to catch giant fish. So he goes and catches the biggest golden dorados there are, the biggest peacock bass there is. He's caught over 90 10-pound bass on artificial stuff.
It's because he's a Texan. All Texans are driven by
goes to Puerto Vallarta all the
bigger.
time. He just loves to catch the biggest of the species.
That's
and
cool.
he will spend any amount to get there and do it.
That's cool.
It is really cool. And it's really cool to read all about it. So, if you get this book from Admiral Larry Walker, I don't know why he calls himself that, but it's in there. But anyway, go to Amazon.com and get you one from Minnows to Marlin from Larry Walker. Last but not least here, we've got some, these are really cool helm pads from Islamorada Fishing Outfitters. And these are made from PVC. They're perforated PVC material. They won't get mildew in them. The water rolls right through them. They come in several different sizes to fit whatever kind of boat you got.
This size is for your skiff.
Right.
There's a mid-size.
Right, there's
between
3 sizes.
this one.
24 by 16.
That's for your bay boat.
And a 40, well, that's the little one. And then the 48 by 16 is a 2-person bay. And the 72 by 16 is for a 3-person, like a big center console or something.
I want you to know, I washed my boat yesterday, and I used this one, and guess what? It's bone dry.
Yeah.
And I didn't set it out in the sun.
Yeah, and it's
set it out.
really comfortable and they're cushiony. So if you're out there pounding around, it really saves your knees and your day. You don't really feel like you've been beaten with a bat when you come back after a day out in the water, and that's very important.
Definitely a game
They're knee
changer.
savers, that's for sure.
A game changer. And your hips.
Yeah,
I really felt it in my hips and my lower back. It was a big difference.
And it does roll up easily. You can,
it's the one
put
you
it away.
use behind
Put a bungee cord on there and stow it away.
Center console.
So go to IslaMoradaFishingOutfitters.com. Captain Randy Tao in Islamorada is making these.
All right.
Gotta keep those feet happy.
All right. Keep them happy, Brie.
All right, the Upper Fresh region may not be known for wade fishing, but with Mike McFarland's help, we may be able to find a few spots. Talk to us, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. It's kind of crazy with this weather going from 40 degrees to 80 degrees. One day it's nice and one day it's not. But let's talk about wade fishing here. A lot of the land in these areas is private property, so it's hard to find access. But honestly, you can go to Lake Levon, and in the upper end of Lake Levon, the northern end, there's some awesome white bass fishing. The bass are running the creeks up there in the north end. You can wade, small inline spinners, and basically bass assassins, small bass assassins are working really, really good. Also on Lake Fork, there is some access via bridges. Lake Fork has about 7 or 8 bridges throughout the lake. And if you can find a place to park, you can walk down on those bridges. The lake itself is public water, so you can wade around. There's some decent bass fishing, some decent crappie fishing that offers the wading, but I promise you need to be very cautious. Lake Fork has a lot of snakes, a lot of poisonous snakes, and big alligators. And yes, I did say big alligators, like 10, 12 footers. So no one's ever had a problem, but definitely be cautious.
All right, let's
tell
talk
you
about
some
bass.
bass fishing in the upper fresh region here. And let's do Lake Levon with my buddy Kerry Thorne. The bass are shallow. They're about anywhere from 2 feet to 20 feet, but mostly spawning there. You'll find them in the brush, on the brush piles, on the bass fishing, the condos, fish condos, which are man-made condos, the rock piles. Any kind of concrete that you can find is holding black bass. White chartreuse spinnerbaits early morning, the first hour. And then the shad spawn's also happening kind of at the same time here, so you can use square bills for another hour or so until that sun gets high. And then you want to really target the tree stumps with Texas rig soft plastics and jigs. Lake Fork, where I guide, my favorite lake, bass fishing's turned back around and it's on the good again. It's 401.86 elevation, which is about 1 foot 3 inches below full pool. We're 64 to 70 degrees. The bass are definitely back on beds, and a lot of big fish have been caught even since I wrote this report a couple days ago. Texas rig creature baits in white, in green pumpkin, and Alabama craw colors are your best bet sight fishing wise. There's a great shad spawn starting to happen in the main lake, on the main lake points, the red clay points, and topwater baits like the Berkeley Bullet Pop, Berkeley square bills like the Fritz sides, anything that imitates a shad, and then bass assassins, all in shad colors. They're working well, and that bite's only going to get better. Look for blue heron birds. Look for the white egrets. If you have those birds on the banks, then you're in the right area. Moving on to crappie, bluegills, and sunfish. Again, Lake Levon, the crappie's excellent there. The spawn's in full swing. You can find those tasty fish in 1 to 3 feet of water in flooded grass from when the lake was low, now high. You got any type of logs or bases of the button willows that surround the shorelines. Great place. Find those spawning crappie. You can also fish the riprap, which is rock boulders. Anywhere you see rock along the shoreline, use a minnow or a jig under a 3 to 3.5 foot bobber. There's also some of the bigger females that are staging around those shallow spawning areas, and they're in a little bit deeper water, 5 to 15 feet. So kind of pay attention to some of those nearby shallow spawning locations for the bigger fish, where you might pitch your jig in a vertical presentation, like a 1/16 ounce crappie-style jig in a variety of colors. And once you find those bigger females, colors don't seem to matter as much. Sunfish. I've never told you about much sunfish this year, but they're starting to really bite on the Vaughn. The bluegills are in 10 to 15 feet of water, earthworms, crickets, and believe it or not, bacon. If you'll use the fatty part of the bacon, a little pinky piece, you can really catch those. 2 to 4 pound test is your best bet. And a little split shot. Just kind of find the brush piles and fish just above them. Let's give you some crappie fishing on Lake Fork. Same thing, spawning. They're really going crazy, but a lot of them are done post-spawn, pulling back out to deep water. And we're finally seeing groups and stacking up in the deeper trees. Again, your simple small hand-tied jigs, tipped with minnows, things like that, 18 to 28 feet. Here's a great day's catch with Jackie Wiggins.
Nice picture there, bub. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's really happy customers. Jackie sure seems to be catching them.
Tell us
Moving on to stripers and white bass. White bass on Lake Levon is still great. Same kind of report as last week. Throw those 3 to 4 inch paddle tail swim baits. Look for the flickering shad spawn. I really want to jump you to Tawakoni because it's still crazy. The awesome fishing on Tawakoni, big fish being caught. The hybrids, everything, sand bass hybrids, they're all on the points. Slab spoons and big swim baits. But look at the size of these fish that are being caught by Matt Cartwright.
Man, those are going to be some big fish. I always know, wow. Matt. Golly, Dave, we need to go do that.
Yeah, man.
Hey.
We need Brie holding down the fort.
That's okay. I already did it with Matt Cartwright.
I did.
Dang.
Yeah, those are big ones. Those are big
They're
fish.
big.
Tell us
These
about
things
the
come like that
catfish.
every day. So
Catfish.
Tawakoni's the way to go right now if you want some big stripers and hybrids.
Tell us about the catfish quickly, Mike.
Catfish on Levon, very good. Blue catfish are slowed down just a little bit, but they're in 10 to 15 foot. Cut shad and cut bluegills are your best bait. Again, you can use those bluegills that you were catching with the bacon. And then, of course, if you want the channel catfish, just put some sour maize out in the riprap rocks. That riprap keeps the maize there, keeps the fish working a little longer. And anywhere about 10 feet in the riprap, come back the next day and you're going to clean up using dough bait.
All right, bud, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and take a look at the hot spots from the Upper Fresh region, and Captain Mike says Lake Fork continues to offer great trophy bass fishing as well as incredible crappie fishing. Both species of fish are in full spawn and can be found in the shallow backwaters throughout the entire lake. The big bass are being caught on all types of Texas rig soft plastics, and the crappie are being taken on 16th ounce jigs tipped with your minnow on under a slip bobber.
So apparently we can catch everything on bacon.
Yeah, including me.
Me too.
I'm a big bacon fan.
It makes me giggle that we use food to catch food.
Yeah, well,
Hey,
it makes sense, really.
you are what
It just
you
makes
eat.
Sense.
Hey, be careful, I'm on fire.
Everything eats bacon.
Have you ever caught
Turtles,
anything
too.
on bacon?
Turtles, brim,
Yes, you
turtles. Yes, yeah. We used to do a trot line, and that's what we would put on it, bacon.
Huh.
Is to catch turtles.
I'm gonna try. I've never tried.
Yeah.
I catch my kids on bacon all the time.
Yeah.
So your
Everything
husband's
eats bacon.
birthday, Joe,
Yeah, my birthday, Joe.
he doesn't know anything about eating bacon with the body that he has.
Oh, he eats bacon, donuts. He's
Everything?
just
Yeah, he's a dude.
ridiculous.
Oh,
He's ridiculous.
that sucks.
Anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys. Make sure you get out there this weekend, catch those fish, and we'll see you next week.